Hello? Can you guys hear me? Hello? Hey guys, can you hear me? How is everyone? Are we live? Let's see. You can hear me? Awesome. Why can't you see me? Oh, guys, are you here? Let me add you to the stage. I can't see anything. Great. Hey guys, look at everybody's here. You can hear, but you can't see. Well, please bear with me because I have no idea what I'm doing, clearly.
Have you added yourself to the stage?
I did. It says remove. Always is going to teach me how to YouTube now.
Well, that's about as far as I get with troubleshooting. If you want,
Let
you
me
can you can leave studio and then come back. Sometimes that helps.
I love that I'm doing this. All right, let me try to do that.
Been there. Let's see if leaving the stream and returning does the trick. If not, I'm out of suggestions.
All right, wait, let me see if let's try this. What if I
Oh, do we lose her? I haven't used StreamYard in a very long time. StreamYard is always on my last nerve. Hi to everybody, by the way. I feel like it's been a very long time since I've actually said hello. Woman and Fiend, post-punk. I thought, post-punk, isn't it past your bedtime? I feel like I saw that somewhere along the way. Belly, hi. Josh, hello. Granny. Let me see. I'm trying to scroll. Keith.
Can you guys see me now? Hear me now?
I cannot see you, but I can hear you.
What the
Judy,
heck?
hello. I'm saying hi to everybody. I'm trying to scroll through. Did I say hi to Fiend?
Yes, you said hi to Fiend.
Okay, good. I can't remember.
Oh, okay. So PPM, hello. Hello, everyone. Even though All Eyes already did that, I don't know what to do. All of my testings were fine. You should see them. I was playing The Real Housewives of New Jersey. It was so much fun by myself. I don't know.
I've been there. I don't remember. It was a long time ago, but the first time I had Judgy on stream, we were backstage trying to. It wouldn't. I couldn't show up either. I'm like, why are we not? It wouldn't let us on stage, and I still have no idea what actually fixed it. You should have seen us backstage trying to figure it out.
Where is she now? Like, tell me that now. All right, wait. Let's see. What is this? That's not it. That's not it. Well, this is embarrassing, but that's okay. That's all right.
Let me see if I leave studio and come back, if it'll help, because I know you've tried. Let me just try real quick, and if not, we'll make do. It's fine. Let me try. I'll be right back.
They can. Okay. So anyway, guys, thanks for showing up. I'm so happy to have you guys here. Why? What was on Amy's stream tonight? Or she was here. She was on earlier, right? Hey, Veronica. Redacted doing redacted. I like your name. I like your new name. So let me see while she's out if I can figure this out. Do any of y'all have a suggestion? So All Eyes, there you are. Add to the stage. I added you, but nobody could see. Let me see what it looks like on my phone. But you guys can hear us, right? So we can still chat. Thanks, Keith. I appreciate it. Oh no, you're talking about Amy's. So what was? I have to check it out. Guys, I haven't seen any of you in such a long time. Tell me everything I missed over the last 2 months other than the picture, which is why we're here today, because I was triggered AF by it. So just tell me everything I missed. Can hear, just black screened. Well, let's see.
Let's see. Well,
I'm
yeah,
looking.
I still see a black screen. Okay, so I'll do, while you look, I'll do as best as I can a brief recap. But about 2 months ago, we got the 15 volumes of exhibits.
Right.
I think it was about 2 months ago. And they were a mess, as usual. And we have recently learned why so much of it was missing, but we're still waiting. So we got the 15 volumes of exhibits, and then
redacted.
excluded, all kinds of exclusions. And then there were a few attempts to have boots on the ground, go in person, because we were told, some of the supplemental volumes said file too large to email, must view in person. And then a few people went up there and there was nothing to view except for the first person who went up there left with Exhibit 5, which we already had because Jody released it on flash drives. And the second person who went up there left with one new thing, but it was something that was already public, and it was just the pagan festival in Fort Wayne where they're doing this ceremony, and Brad Holder's recording it, and Patrick Westfall's reaching up to the tree. That was already on Facebook, but that was the only thing new. And then that was all amid the appellate attorneys filing a motion to compel because they still didn't have the Franks and the motion to correct error exhibits, which I kind of expected those to be in whatever Jody turned in with the Franks. Yeah.
Right.
But it was just the Franks exhibits and that one, and we already have them. So it's not so much I need her to file them for the sake of we haven't seen them, because we already have them. But I feel like that's part of the record, and that seems like a pretty significant part of the record that I would think there needs to be a supplemental volume for. I don't know what's going on with that one as of right now, but I do know that I have alerted everybody who's in a position to know or do something about it, about like a very comprehensive list of all of the things that we are still missing that does not meet any criteria to remain excluded, especially not the entire page. But that's kind of what the last 2 months has been about, just a bunch of really tedious stuff. And most of it we had already seen or knew the gist of, but it wasn't until we got the Franks exhibits that a lot of it was just almost like a new blow. But that picture was the first thing that stuck out to me, and it just, my heart sunk into my stomach when I saw it, and I thought that's not good, because it's not incel video. And when you look in the descriptions and back through the Frank's motion, it even says like it's a still shot taken from a video produced by Westville. But if it's not incel video, it must be the camcorder video
throughout the prison that they showed during the trial, right? Would that be the one? Okay.
It would just be one of the movement videos, but it didn't specify the date. I'm assuming that defense knows the date, but it just said, they took a screen grab from whatever that video was, but it seems to line up with one of the visits that Max Baker spoke about in his affidavit about one of the visits in, I want to say May. Okay. That's when he went and his entire face was bruised, is what he said.
Well, and not just that, though. I mean, looking at the photo, which I wish I could share, but whatever. I mean, the shoulders also look bruised. Yeah. I mean, it could be the lighting, but it looks like he was literally beaten on his shoulders. Am I wrong, or do you guys see that too? I mean...
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's going to let me... I'm going to see if it'll let me...
You might be able to share.
It might. If not, then I will... Hang on. I don't know. No, it's not letting me. It's okay. It's not letting me either. That's all right.
Here, wait.
Oh, there's one. Okay.
Yeah. See,
Okay.
we are not on we can't be on the stage, but okay, that's good. All right.
Apparently, yeah. And I think if you try to share your screen, it'll just automatically take over mine. It's been
Okay.
a while since I've gone back and forth, but I can go ahead and pull this up
Okay.
in the
There it is.
meantime.
Do you see his shoulders there?
Let me see if
Like
I
that?
can. Let me make it.
So,
Yep. I mean, as
uh,
far as I know, he doesn't have any tattoos, but yeah, on his left and on his right, on the outside of his arm.
and down the shoulder,
Hmm.
see how that it's yeah, that's definitely black and blue going down the shoulder on what is that, the left side, and then the top of the shoulder here. So it could be the lighting, a shadow, but to me, he physically looks totally beaten
Yeah,
from
I
in
don't
my
know if
opinion.
he's in like the infirmary, if he's some like on. Well, I don't know if this because movement videos. The only time that they would move him was either for appointments with the prison psychologist or for his. Actually, it seems like they did most of his medication in cell, but at
Mhm.
one point in it was either the motion for emergency modification, or the second time that they tried to file another verified motion to move him. In one of Razi's filings, he says that he cites a certain prison video, which was the camcorder video, and it says they were moving him for a haircut. But
I
the
remember that.
timing that they were moving him for the haircut was in April when he was in psychosis. Like, I doubt he was asking for a haircut. And when I think of these movement videos, it concerns me because he's no longer on video unless they are videoing it. And one of the first actually good reasons I remember ever hearing against having body cams,
Mhm.
just in general, and it's not that, I think I don't think it's enough of a reason to not have body cams, but it was the first good one. And it's just, what good is it if they control it? They can hide it. Like, it's always better to get your own video kind of thing. But it's because they can control when it starts, when it stops, if it's muted. And we were told 6 different times during the safekeeping hearing that this the movement videos and the camcorder didn't have audio.
You're
The
right,
warden
exactly.
testified 6 separate times. There's no audio. Calm down. We're not recording these attorney visits. Turns out they were, and it did have audio. And now it doesn't, but it seems like at trial, when they were trying to show the movement videos, that they had to go back in and mute it because it wasn't automatically muted. And I think that's how we initially figured out that it was a lie, even though I think we all had a pretty good idea that who's heard of a camcorder that doesn't record audio? They all do. It's just it's built in. But
And
I worry
it
that they use those to like move him around when they want to punish him.
so the one thing with the audio is weren't they using the same camcorders during the attorney's
Yeah.
visits? So, I mean, we know that it had audio. They said it didn't, but they were
Well, in
like
2023, they said it didn't. And then all of a sudden in 2024, it did.
right, right. So they were also listening to the confidential, the privileged attorney client meetings as well
Right.
because they had audio on the same camcorder. But it's all very concerning. But my question is also, so if this is probably May, this is right around the time of the confessions as well, right? So my whole theory is that, like all of us, that the confessions were coerced,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. I mean, nothing in prison is voluntary, period.
Right.
Like, that's just how I feel about it. You don't get a say. And that's what I thought was so ridiculous about the warden's testimony. He was saying
Yeah.
something to the effect of, well, because the attorneys were asking, why was his shirt dirty? Like, where was he? What happened to cause this to his shirt? There's no dirt outside where he has Rick. It's a cage. There's no dirt. How is
Mhm.
this dirty? Did it come from a cell? Can we go look at it? Like, they were trying to ask just really straightforward questions. And the warden, out of one side of his mouth, was saying, well, he uses his commissary to buy extra shirts. He actually bought some shirts specifically for his attorney's visits, but then out of the other side of his mouth, he says he refused to go change. And the thing about it is, you don't get to refuse. Like, the guards tell you when you're going, where you're going. You don't get to put in requests. Hi, can we stop by my room real quick? That's just not how it works. And so
Right.
everything about it is like solitary. You cannot confine another human being peacefully without some sort of force. Like, you have, in order
Mhm.
to hold anybody captive, another human being captive, you have to use force 24 hours a day. The environment by default is coercive. And so, even just on that alone, for me, that's enough to, I'm sorry, I'm not going to entertain these confessions just on that. But then when you add in the fact that the more we learn, the worse it gets,
Mhm.
on top of the fact that everybody knows exactly what happens to people accused of crimes against children when they're in prison.
Precisely.
There's
Especially
just
these
no
crimes.
getting around it. And we also know that, especially when you're talking prison gangs, and especially white supremacist prison gangs, that is one of the things that is, for a new inmate, if you haven't proven yourself yet, the next time an inmate accused of these kinds of crimes is placed, it is your job to go take care of him and rough him up really good. I mean, that's one of the tales as old as time that has been very consistent over the decades. I'm pretty sure they're not. I imagine it's not just the white supremacist gangs, but I do know that there are people who are in these gangs in Indiana who are very open about it, and it's not a secret. And so we do
Right.
know that there was all kinds of stuff. And then I do think it lines up with his tablet as well. I don't think this is the first time. I think we're seeing what happened to him in May, but it I don't think that was the first time something happened to him.
I think it's the first time we have documentation of something happening to him.
Yes.
That's it. And it's only a still from a video. And this is how bad it is. Right. And this is after the confession, around the time the confession started. So, in order to get him into the space where he was that thin, what had to happen prior. And the whole thing about the prison gangs and the cars, like I started researching a lot of that because they call them cars. Like if you don't join a gang, like you join a car or something like that. So that's a really great point, Allies. Like, how would he ever prove himself if he was always in solitary confinement? Like he had no opportunity to even socialize with these different people. So it's really the prison guards.
Correct. And I don't know
That's
how
it.
anybody could have, they kept saying, like, if you read the trial testimony of these guards, it's
Right.
infuriating.
Yeah.
But if anybody wants to, it's October 29th. The entire day's testimony was all prison guards and the
Mhm.
warden. And their testimony is blood boiling, but it's just gut wrenching because they're, one of them was pretty, like, he almost enjoyed talking about it. He's like, oh, he was banging his own head, and he wasn't doing it very hard. Like, he was just, he's just slightly tapping his head against the wall. I'm like, okay, if that's what was happening, how did his eyes get this black from lightly doing it? And how do we know somebody did not assist his head into the wall? Do you know what I mean? Because
We
they were
don't.
even tasing him for not removing his hands from the cuff port quickly enough. Okay, well, he's medicated. You might want to give him a minute. I just, like, some of the most common sense stuff. And then one of the dipshit guards, it makes me so angry. They
Mm.
asked him, did your taser hit him? And he's like, well, I'm not real sure. Well, then you don't get a weapon. If you don't even know after deploying a weapon if it actually struck someone, like, are you playing stupid or are you lying? Because neither one is good. They're both unacceptable.
Oh,
And if they think it's justified, that's actually worse
yeah.
because that is not, they do not get to play judge, jury, and executioner.
But
Their
they do.
job is to keep these people safe and to keep us civilized and all this stuff. And I have a real problem with, like, if you saw someone having the shit beat out of them on the side of the road, would you pull over and be like, wait, does he deserve it? No, like,
Mhm.
it's like, you don't ask, is it wrong to hit somebody based on whether or not they deserve it. If you're defending yourself, it's like defensive violence. I'm just gonna, just as a disclaimer, that is different. You are allowed to defend yourself. But if it's two mutually powerful people or like on equal footing, that's a whole different thing. But when you're talking about these people are restrained, I don't care what crime they're accused of. We are still bound by laws and ethics about our own behavior,
I love this.
regardless of what these people in prison are accused of and convicted of.
Correct.
I feel very strongly about that. And it's not a popular opinion because it's not about trying to coddle violent criminals or about what they deserve. It's about, regardless of what they deserve, we still have our own humanity to protect.
All Eyes, can I go back? Because you said something and it was like, I think honestly, the point is that they likely tased him and did this to him so many times that they literally couldn't remember at what point was he tased at this point. Like with the head banging and the tasing, was he assisted in the head banging and things like. Honestly, unfortunately, I believe that this is Richard's like everyday life. Unfortunately,
Right.
and so the fact that we have this proof, though, I think is enough. If we can get somebody must be able to
found the
ask
date, by the way.
Max. I'm sorry.
I just pulled up his affidavit.
Yeah.
In the Franks memo, it didn't specify the dates. It just cited portions of his affidavit. So for up until we got these new exhibits, I just had all of the quotes from
You're
only
amazing.
the available ones. But now that we have it, it says, hang on, actually, let me share this. Let me make sure it's sharing. Yeah.
It's sharing.
Yeah, and it says that he's talking about, this is paragraph 4. A great deal of my time working on a case has involved me reviewing hours upon hours of video from inside the walls of the maximum security unit wherein Rick has been confined. Through my work, I discovered a video of Rick taken by prison worker carrying a camcorder, which shows Rick being moved into the captain's office. Rick has no shirt on. He is fully shackled. He is seated in the room with the cameras pointing directly at his face. His face is severely blackened, blued, and bruised to the point where it is obvious that his face suffered some extreme trauma. The video was taken between May 26th and May 30th in reference to video in the discovery provided by the state. The video is 4 minutes and 5 seconds in length. It was so disturbing to me that I took a still shot of the video, approximately 32 seconds, and offered it up to Attorney Rozzi for his review.
Mm-hmm.
But it was at the end of May that this one was taken. And now we know why Kathy was probably crying the entire time during her May 30th visit. But what's also incredible to me about, I'll switch it back to the other one. It's
Keith, you're right. You're one. He said the bruising prominently in his sockets and down the side of his face tells me he was taking hooks. That's exactly what it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, he has just that one little mark at like where his widow peak would be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not indicative of the injuries that they were testifying to witnessing, saying how he got those.
Mm-hmm.
But also this visit with Kathy Allen at the end of May,
mm-hmm.
Walla was, when you look through at all of her reports from April to May,
right,
she's almost dangling this visit in front of him for like a month and a half. And then you listen to the recorded phone calls of Richard Allen talking to Kathy, and she's like, have they not let you call, or you just haven't called? Because on April 3rd, he calls his dad and he's like, hey, if I go no contact, make sure that Mom and Kathy know, like, I'm okay. I'm worried about you guys getting extorted. If I need something, I promise I will tell you. He's kind of trying to say it without saying it. But then, that conversation takes place on April 3rd. And then on April 6th, the prosecutor is present at Westville.
mm-hmm.
He's getting an affidavit from the warden signed. And part of that affidavit is saying his tablet was broken. He broke it himself. But prior to us seeing that affidavit, the prosecutor was suggesting that he started confessing on the 3rd and then pretended to be crazy. But before he pretended to be crazy, He confessed 5 or 6 times, and then he hung up on his wife and hasn't talked to her since. Well, it turns out his tablet was broken, but then we get this letter from another prisoner saying that they were taunting him, saying, "Your family's calling, your family's calling." Well, they
Of
can't
course
really
they will.
call on a broken tablet. So the other aspect of this that it has lived rent free in my head
Mhm.
for quite some time. And then when I heard that April 3rd call with his dad, I'm like, I just, I don't want to say I knew it because I don't know it, but I really think it. And when I say I think something, it usually means I'm worried that that's what happened. But
Mhm.
it seems to me like he did not break it himself because Westville replaced it for free. And the party who causes the damage is not usually the one, or like if Mr. Allen broke his own tablet, he would be paying to replace it. But instead, Westville is. And that's just backwards to how it usually would work. Normally, the person who broke it pays for the damage. And since Westville did that, in my mind, that is, I guess,
What?
sort of admitting that it was actually not Mr. Allen who broke it. And I guess we can't really know for sure who would have. But I do think it lines up with him telling his dad, hey, I don't know what he was using, if it was just the phone they roll up to the unit. But I do know that we have that at the beginning of April. And then at the beginning of May, we have him finally talking to Walla and apparently giving this very detailed, chronologically, supposedly accurate confession. And then all of a sudden, after a month and a half of him trying and asking to see his family, finally, after he confesses, Kathy is able to schedule a visit at Westville. And it's just the timing of all of it really bothers me. And then when
It
she finally does show up, he looks like this.
it's purposeful. He's rewarding it. What's that term? It's not intermittent rewards. It was intermittent is when it's not
Like
on a
positive and negative
schedule.
reinforcement?
Yes. Yeah, it's like positive reinforcement, but more than that, right? So
Yes.
that's exactly what it was. It's they were rewarding him for finally confessing, right?
That's what it sounds like. Okay, if you just tell her. And oh my gosh, when I was doing something, it was over the weekend. I don't remember what day it was, but I
Mhm.
was re-looking at the interview where he writes to the warden
Mhm.
saying he wants to request an interview. Let me see if I can find that real quick because
With
it'll probably
Galpo.
make more sense when I show it, because I don't know if I'm just behind the curve. I don't know if somebody else has already figured this out or if maybe it just didn't sink in until I saw it. Hang on, let me share this one. Okay, let me make this bigger. So if you look at it, it
Mhm.
says, I am ready to officially for confess. And I thought, well, I mean, I've seen this a bunch of times, but when I was typing it out for because I'm trying to make a
Interesting.
compiled list of exclusions, I'm like, oh my gosh, he wrote, I'm ready to confess. And they were like, for what? And he had to write for killing Libby or Abby. And then he had to go after sign, he wrote, I'm ready to confess Richard Allen, or I'm ready to officially confess, sorry, signed Richard Allen. And then he writes for, and then under
Right.
it, killing Abby and Libby. And then he has to go back in and say, I hope I get the chance to tell the families I'm sorry. Like it's almost like his first one where they were like, I'm ready to confess. They're like, okay, this isn't good enough. You need, like we need more. He's like, okay, for this. And they're like, that's still not enough. Are you sorry about it? And so then he's like going back in and writing about it. But
Mhm.
it just hit a little different because this is April the 5th. And it says March the 5th, but the guard testified that it happened on April 5th. And that lines up with when they started rushing up there. But the thing that's also weird about that is on April 5th, that is when defense had just left. They had just gone up there to visit him. Why would he be
Right.
doing this? And then 2 days after they leave, he's admitting to all of it. And I don't think he was in his right mind. What I think is the same thing that happens in interrogations where these people are saying, we have experts, we have this, we have that. The Reed technique is effective on innocent and guilty people alike. And it's kind of like, okay, if I just confess and get to the next thing, then I'll finally, like when somebody is when I talk to someone who's reasonable, they'll figure it out, you know, and it's like I just need this immediate moment to stop because until this moment stops, I can't get to that reasonable person. I'm only, you know, when he's in there with Jerry Holman, he's like, "Oh, this man is not serious. He cannot be for real right now." And he's, you know, he's almost just like, "Sure, uh-huh, okay, good luck to," you know, he's being real sarcastic and dismissive of Holman because he's like, "You're not, go for it. You're not going to find anything that connects me to this. I don't know what you're talking about. If that is my bullet, it wasn't at a murder scene." Like he's like, "I don't know what you're gonna." He
He
basically
was
insists, "You're not going to convince me of these things."
still
And
in his right mind, not
yes,
overdose on a held on whatever it was, Haldol, not beaten and starved to death, almost to death. Like he's so thin compared to where he was. He was so I can totally see. I never noticed that before. I am ready to confess that was all written in one, and then officially four does look like it was written after that.
I think so. And
I think you're right.
maybe like maybe it wasn't, but otherwise, you know, I do remember when all this stuff first came out, everybody was like, "Okay, that doesn't even make sense." Like he's scribbling, and then they were trying to compare it to the letter he wrote to the judge in November of 2022, just to compare how you know, legible versus sloppy his handwriting was. But you can tell, even if like it's obviously legible, you can tell what he's trying to write. It's not as structured as his November letter, but I
Right.
do think the part that's actually out of order is not so much like, okay, let's say he wasn't out of his mind. He clearly was coerced because he wrote one thing first. Who brought it back to him and said, "Add more?"
Mhm.
Because otherwise he would have scratched it out like he did in his November email when he messed something up. He scratched it out and then continued writing after correcting it. And this one, like maybe he didn't get that chance because they're like in his face, write it, right, you know, like pressuring him.
Mhm.
And it hit different this time for some reason. I've seen this thing, I don't know how many times, but it wasn't until this weekend. And a lot of times it's because like one of the reasons I do compile everything is because it takes a while for certain things to actually sink in. I might have, no matter how many times I read the Frank's memo and then reread it again, every time I feel like I learn something new from it, even though I've read it so many times. And I never know if it's the Delphi memory hole where there's just so much information, you kind of memory hole it, you forget about it, or it's just something that there was so much the last time you read it that it just didn't sink in until you went back and reviewed it. And then it's also probably a combination of that with,
I think
you
so.
know, when you learn new information in between the last time you read it and you go back
Mhm.
in, you think, "Oh my gosh, we just got this new information." Anyway, that's why I do compile everything because it's just kind of how my brain works. It takes me a few times to read just about anything before I really retain any of it at all. And I don't retain all of it at that point. That's just when I start retaining it. But it's also, I put it in one place so that I feel like it does help all of us kind of stay on the same page. Because usually, if anybody comes across something that's either incorrect or because a lot of these I've just updated as we go, and I try every time we get new information to go back and update any document I think would need updating, but I still miss some. But still, if I have it in one place, it is good because people who know that we're trying to get it all in one place will message me and then I can go through and it's just I feel like it helps us keep up with each other because there's so much I don't think any one of us could cover all of it. Like we kind of have to divvy it up just by default.
Yeah. And that was actually going to be part of my intro before I couldn't get us on stage, and it was like a cluster F of a beginning, but, like, between it was your website when I was still a lurker before I even said anything to anyone, and I was just trying to learn about the case. It was your Google Drive and, Delphi Docs, Reddit, and you had to go through all of the documents, and that the trial hadn't even begun, right? So, it was so important. I think it's such a resource, just not only for you guys, like us who are you guys who are really figuring this out, but newcomers to the case, right? So it's such a resource. So I just wanted to say thank you for doing that because it's so much work. But imagine what it's like for the lawyers too.
Yeah.
Like they're on a time crunch, and here you are, like years later, going through it again. it's a year since the trial, but
I've been in
you're
the
still
weeds
getting
with
new
this.
information, you
I don't know
know?
how they keep track of it with this case, especially when they have all these other cases.
Right.
But when I started this a long time ago. I don't think it would have turned into what it is now if it weren't for I came across Matt Black before I came across anybody else. And I think it was Scribd, probably. I don't think it was Twitter even. I think it was on Scribd. And that was I don't know if he has everyone on there, but he has a lot of them. And at that point in time, I think it was at least all of them that were at that point available. And so I just was like, I'm going to organize these so that I can just at some point put them in a database and just make them all searchable so we can find them easily because I had at that time really criminality was probably the only one I was watching
Right.
regularly at that point because I wasn't real plugged into the actual Delphi space at all.
Mhm.
And that's really I don't think if I had found Matt Black's script, I probably wouldn't have even tried it. And then I discovered Delphi Docs after that. And I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, there's all of these different resources and everybody had a lot. But some people had this, some people
Separately.
had that, and I was trying to
Yeah.
make sense of who had what, and it looked to me like most of it was just, okay, this one was most recently updated, and I just couldn't keep it all straight, but I had so many questions about this case, and I had started filing records requests with the county, like, just trying to get information because I thought, "Where is this information?" Like, the rest of it, and it was just strange, but that's kind of where it started, but I think it was probably around February or March of 2024, I just remember thinking, like, I was still reserving space for maybe he did it and we just haven't seen the evidence. I don't think he did it, but I always am just that's just how I am. If I can't leave space open for it, then I'm not really like it's just important to me for like a blinders check to just leave space open because if I can't even consider something that I don't want to admit, then I'm not really fully
S-
considering it. That's just how I am. But I remember thinking, it was so it shouldn't be this difficult, and I wanted anybody with experience or skills who would be willing to take an interest in what I saw in my mind. It looked like we were watching a wrongful conviction in the making, and I
Mhm.
thought, "I just wanna make it as easy as possible once this man is convicted," because at that point, trial was still scheduled for March of 2024. And
Mhm.
so I really was like for, like, a month, I just was, like, doing nothing else but just trying to gather everything and compile it and organize it, and then, of course, it was delayed again, and but, yeah, that's really the point is anybody willing to take an interest, I just want it to be there, and I try to have as many links to everything from Delphi Docs to Regal Justice to people's Twitter. Like I'm trying to make it all in one place so that people can find our space, I guess is the best way to put it. But also because I don't think I'd be able to keep track of all of it if I couldn't just go to my drive and keyword search it. That is very useful. It saves a lot
Right.
of time.
No, it is. It's a huge resource, and just watching all of the work that's been done, even just on X, watching you guys go through all of the documents and just putting everything together. I wish, and that's the other thing that really upsets me is that the lawyers weren't so in tune with the space,
Mhm.
during the pretrial to get ready for trial because a lot of things, yeah, I mean, we're not going to revisit that, but you
Yeah.
know, it, a lot more could have been, I think, done from my opinion.
There's a lot of legitimate criticisms to be made of
Mhm.
the defense attorneys, absolutely. I'm just
Right,
not the type to harp on it when
right,
when the fight is for real over, we'll
right,
absolutely go there, but
right.
it's hard for me to like, privately, I've got my own thoughts, obviously,
And
and
it's
it
and
is
it's
frustrating to watch, but I try to I'm like, "Okay, there's plenty of time for that," and I'm just still in the mode of, "Okay, we'll get to that." But
And
first
if anything, it's like a lesson for the future for
right,
attorneys in the future on future cases, which like Luigi Mangioni's lawyers are doing this now, right? They
right.
have everything up on the website as soon as they file or anything. So everything gets up there so everybody can see it. The transparency is clear. So, I mean, I believe that they probably have an idea of what's been going on with Delphi, honestly. And that's partly why they're doing this in my
Yeah.
opinion. They're watching us, so I think what the Delphi community is doing is really impacting future cases, and other lawyers are paying attention. So whatever happened with the defense attorneys here, it happened, and like you said, that's for another time, but it is making a difference is
Yeah.
what I'm saying,
Yeah.
for the future of wrongful convictions and things like this, and just having that documentation out there and readily available for the public, just like with the transcripts,
Mhm.
right? Like, what an incredible resource that is too, and it's bringing up so much, like, more information, like you said, like now you can go back at all of these exhibits and the things you knew before, and it's just bringing new light to it.
Yeah.
So
And more people keep coming in every time there's new information released.
right.
We do have more people coming in, and I know I don't like anecdotal things just in general, at least not for this typically,
Mhm.
but it is hard not to notice that it is not as stigmatized now as it was in the very beginning to question the conviction. Like even on court TV, they are. And in other areas where they're at least now more people are admitting that something might be wrong here. And and some people they still do I stopped doing it a long time ago with the prefacing, if he's guilty, I will, if I saw any evidence that he was involved in this, I would do a 180 without hesitation, because it's really all I've been asking for this whole time is just something showing that he has some connection to this crime or the victims. And I've seen
Mhm.
nothing so far, but it would have to be actual evidence, not just Jerry Hellman saying so. But it's just, first of all, real quick, before I forget, like I try not to discourage people from criticizing defense, because I do think that's important for like self-reflection reasons. I just mean I try not to harp on it. Like because I probably would harp on it too much, because I am kind of a direct person. It's hard for me to pretend like I'm
I
not
know.
good at like self-censoring, I guess. So
Well,
I try
that's
to
why
just
we're
not open
here.
that door, but I think it's legitimate to criticize them,
Mhm.
because if you're trying to fight for someone, you should fight for them. But I do think more people are recognizing this for the wrongful conviction that it is. There are some people who will never see it any other way, and that's fine. But I do think there's something to be said for organic support, because none of us know this man. I don't know the attorneys. I don't know. I
Mhm.
have no personal stake in any of it. And I do sometimes feel, I don't know if guilty is the right word, but there's so many cases like this that they're just as deserving as this much attention. But I do tend to believe that this one comes in with built in national attention already. And
Mhm.
so it it only takes one case to set a precedent, and it only takes one case to undo a precedent. And so that's kind of why I do hyper focus on one. And it's because this man does deserve it as much as anybody who's wrongfully convicted. But that's kind of just where I stand on it. But I think some people are recognizing it now, because it's very hard to shake the stigma of child killer. Like with Karen Reed, there wasn't as much of a stigma,
That's what I was gonna say.
even though you would think, you hear cop killer, and it's, that's pretty stigmatizing. So most people are automatically going to be more reserved to ask questions, because cop killer very bad. But like child killer is even worse. But it was a little different though with her, because it wasn't like a suspect situation, or, it was like, did she drunk hit him? Or, it was just, there was more reasonable doubt built in around her case anyway. But still, like this one, even with the added stigma, I think you can tell that people are opening up more. I think that's a positive.
And may I say, astrologically, the energies that we're working with now are in favor of bringing out of illuminating this corruption, the systemic corruption, and everything that's happening. And I think that Karen Reed's case really helped that one, because, and I've heard a lot of people say it, yes, she is an attractive white woman, right? And
Hmm.
she had money. And so, but that's the catalyst
Hmm.
that needed to break open this barrier. So now everybody is, now we can look at everything. Like that
Mhm.
the Trial 4 documentary with
Oh, yes, I
you
love
know
that one. That was
that
the first thing I ever posted on my YouTube channel on the community page was about that documentary.
incredible case. But and
Mhm,
that Rosemary Scarpiccio, she is now Miles King's lawyer, and she's doing the same thing in the
mhm,
same county with the same, like, it's not
mhm.
the same county, but she's fighting the same battle that she
Right,
was all those years ago. But now people are paying attention,
right.
right? So this is just the beginning of this huge change. And I think 25 years from now, we're going to look back, or they are, whoever will look back at all of the work that's being done here with Delphi
Mhm.
specifically, and the grassroots movement here, and all of true crime, really. But that's why I get so activated and inspired, because it's
Mhm.
really a grassroots movement of the people taking back the power, right? And that's what really turns me on about this whole thing is number, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? And I
yeah.
love it. And
Mhm.
but it's true, like, it's sad that it's happening right now with Richard, and we have to get him out and get him the Taco Bell, right? And that's the number one priority.
Absolutely.
But when we in the macro of everything, it's really at the it's the we're on the precipice of this huge change,
Well, I really
systemically.
hope so, but some like, as hopeful as it does make me on one hand, on the other hand, it just infuriates me that
Mhm.
it would take all of this to to even make a dent in the
Start.
state. Like, the state is this well-oiled machine. Like, even when Officer Caffey and Holman, they were talking about it being a well-oiled machine. That sucker is well-oiled with or without them. Like, you can just
Exactly.
plug and play any cop, and all of the benefits are built into the state already. And then even with Karen Reed, she had these, I don't even want to know how expensive her attorney's fees are going to be when this is over. I can only imagine.
Well, most of them are pro bono now. So they took
Oh, that's
retainers.
interesting. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, they took retainers initially, and the last lawyer that came on, Alessi, sorry, I just know that, like, I'm too much Karen Reed all the time. I watched, like, probably every second of that. But yeah, then the last lawyer that came in, Alessi, he was pro bono. And then the other lawyers said they weren't going to take any more from her, but likely because of what's coming, the book deals and all of that.
Yeah,
But they knew that without them, what was going to happen to her? She was going to
exactly.
get run over by the state, which
Mhm.
is what happens all of the time.
Every
And
day
it's
in all these small towns, and nobody ever hears about it. And if there was no national attention on this case, I I firmly believe this man would have been tried and convicted on no evidence in March of 2023, and Kathy Allen would just still be visiting him in prison, trying to write letters to people to talk about the case that nobody would give a second thought because he was convicted of killing two girls. Like, that's all anybody would have known about it, because
Mhm.
none of this information would have made its way out. Like, he just had it not already had this national attention. But that's what happens to most people every single day. And I really don't know if it's most people or half the people. I know that law enforcement's own data is not in their favor about how good they are at solving violent crimes. They're not good at it. And unless the crime is solved at the scene with physical evidence that just is verifiable and can hold up to scrutiny, if it's not solved for them by the time they show up, just by the evidence left there at the scene, they're not good at figuring it out. They're taught all of these things and trained to think certain ways, and in some cases that does work out, but not in all of them. And they're just
It's
not great at adapting for when, like, those should be in place, and if they're working, great. If they're not, you should have other tools in your toolbox, and they don't. They have the same ones across the country, and it terrifies me, to be honest. I don't know how to fix that, but
what's
it's
even
it's hard
I
to know because
know.
other people are dealing with it too, and it's how do you fix it?
Well, I think it's illumination, number one, but and I hate to say it, but
No,
it's the
that's
truth.
true.
I mean, we're talking about, and I'm going to bring race into it. But we're talking about two white people here, right? All
Hmm.
of the brown people, right, who are poor, or just we could say more poor and vulnerable people. This has been happening forever, right? Like, just now we're like, it's the energy that us. Sorry, but the astrology really is supporting this. Like, this illumination of the exploitation of the coercion of all of these things, right? So it's the perfect timing, but how do you stop it? Honestly, we need more money, right, into these more impoverished areas.
Yeah.
That's the only way to fix this, so that way people can advocate for themselves.
Well, one of
And
the interesting things about that, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
no.
on that specific note, one
Mhm.
of the things that even drew me to this case in the first place, besides the fact that my oldest was at the time approaching, she was almost as old as the girls were, and so it was just like, just as a mom, like, I'm like, what? Every now and then I would just Google this case. Did they ever arrest somebody for that crime? And I would just Google it from now on,
Mhm.
off and on. But once the PCA was unsealed and I started having questions, the questions I was having was related to, prior to this, the systemic issues I always talk about are,
Mhm.
like, when you talk about crime data is police reported,
Oops.
and it's just, it's number one, uniform crime reporting is a voluntary system. There are some
Yeah.
cases where it is tied to federal funding, and so that incentivizes them, but there's nothing really to enforce it. Like, they can still get funding and kind of be extra discretionary. But, when they first started collecting crime data, I think it was the early 1900s, maybe the 1930s, for the first, I don't know, 60 years of collecting crime data, it
Mm.
was illegal for Black people to do the same things that were legal for white
Correct.
people to do it. And when you look at how crime data is used, it is more often used for resource allocation. And how are we going to spend
100%.
this? So we look at the previous year to determine where we're going to invest the money in the coming years. The problem is, instead of investing it into prevention, they invest it into targeting communities. And so
Right.
these certain communities have been overpoliced and overpoliced and overpoliced for so many years. It is finally getting to the point where it is no longer just affecting the poor Black and brown neighborhoods, it's affecting poor white neighborhoods. And so,
Mhm.
of course, once it affects a different demographic, then all of a sudden more people do
Yeah.
care. But it
Mhm.
does, now that is one of the things we are talking about, illuminating it. And sometimes just awareness. Once you see something, you can't unsee it. And it is a way to plant seeds, to talk about these things where it could happen to literally anybody. And even though it bothers me that sometimes it does take a pretty white woman, or
Right.
like a nice white guy, for people to care, like, I don't care what, if that's what it takes to get somebody's attention. I don't care. Fine. Like, if that's welcome, might be late,
Exactly.
but better late than never. But it is important to understand, really, the like, when you talk about the power of the state, it's not just overwhelmingly well-oiled and powerful and all these built-in benefits. There's decades of, like, a lot, and especially when you think about these law enforcement officers who've been in it for like 30 years. Who were they trained by? And they were trained by these people who, for years, when they're talking about crime data and they're talking about their professional judgment, well, that is biased by what they learned in the 20 years that they were on the force, when they're, educating the next crop of cadets or whatever. It's
Right.
just, once you recognize these things, though, it is easier to understand this is a full-on systemic issue that, you can't fix it overnight. But, like, I do firmly believe, because that's what it took for me. Like, once I just learned these very basic things, I think most
Mhm.
reasonable people can understand the implications of most of these things. And just on a human level, they understand, okay, I need to be more cautious when somebody is accused of something. I need to really step back and think, okay, before I knew these things, I used to just inherently believe the state. They always, they must have had a reason to arrest him. Now it's a lot easier for me to take a step back and to be more skeptical and more
Discerning.
confident. Yes, and
Yeah.
more confident in my abilities to do that because now
Mm.
and that's one of the reasons too I like the Google Doc and folder and stuff for people is because I don't have to tell them what to think. Most cases, when people ask us questions, when they come into our space and ask questions, you just
Right.
give them a link to the doc and they go read it and they come back like I'll have forgotten about it. On Twitter, people at me all the time asking for stuff because they know, like, I'm sure Delphi Docs probably gets it 1,000 more times than I do. But they at us all the time to ask questions or where's this or who said what, and we send it to them, and it's hard to keep it
Mhm.
straight and kind of forget, and then you come back the next day or so, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I read that," and they have, like, a full report of everything they've read since you sent them that one thing. I do think there's power in that.
Absolutely, and just I mean, to get them started with the
Yeah,
Franks, that's always the best way to get them started with Delphi,
yeah.
really, is to give them the Franks, but, just to circle back, also, I just wanted to add one more thing is to the systemic issue is I think another really important point, though, in battling, and exposing all of this like systemic corruption is to start getting rid of, and I'm going to be more mindful of this myself, of the few bad apples, or
Mhm.
like, ruins the barrel, and how we speak about that in terms of corporations, institutions, police departments, and things like that, right? Because there really aren't like one or two bad apples, right? It's a systemic problem. So I
Absolutely.
think I just wanted to throw that out there because that's like a pet peeve of mine when I hear people say that. It's enabling and kind of blame shifting and bypassing really the corruption that's been going on. But I know we're all in agreement
Well,
there. So,
somebody reminded me at one point when I was first learning about even the crime data stuff. They were like,
mhm.
one spoiled apple or one rotten apple spoils the barrel.
Right.
And so, like even if people say, "Oh, it's just a few bad apples." Okay, well, in my opinion, or like when people say that, I think, okay, well, who trained the bad apple?
Yeah.
Who deputized the bad apple? Who hired the bad apple? Who supervised him? And who worked right alongside of the bad apple?
Right.
And how many detectives does a police department need to find a bad apple right under their own nose? Like, why do they always seem to be the last people to know that a particular officer does not hold the same values that they do? And it's not until somebody has a cell phone video or something that's not on a body cam that they controlled. And it's just, I
It's
find it
a
incredible that they're always so surprised. I'm like, y'all have been working with this person. Why are you should have been the first person to pick up on it, but
and
the
it's a huge
community had to tell them.
right. It's a huge revelation. One lawyer actually said this, and it was regarding the Karen. It was that Sergeant Barrios, I believe, in the Karen
Yes.
retrial, and Solomon Radner, who's I think brother counsel's brother. I was watching their video once, and he actually said something very. He was right. He's like, they have to cover for each other. So let's say a bad apple is the only person who can take care of someone who's or shoot or have the back of someone who's the good apple's life is in danger, right? So of course the good apple is going to cover for the bad apple because they're in a war together, right? If
No.
they're like, they have to have each other's back. Their lives are in danger, right? So now, like, that's breeding the corruption, right? It makes sense that they all cover for each other. And so when Nicholas Barros, whatever his name is, came out and spoke up against them,
Mhm.
that's why it was so profound, right? Because they seldom do that because they have to cover each other because they
Right.
have guns and their lives are in danger. They could potentially be killed. Right, Keith, how do you like them apples?
Yeah.
Anyway, you know what I'm
Well, the
saying? Like,
thing that's incredible to me about that though is, I do lean on the Greg Ferenczi side of this a lot
mhm. All right.
because, I don't think any officer is above scrutiny. I'm sure if we looked hard enough, we would find some issues in his history because he wasn't just in terrorism, he also was part of the drug task force. And in my
Correct.
opinion, when I hear war on drugs officer, I'm like, that's like an automatic. Like I have a visceral reaction to war on drug cops, just in
It's
general.
valid.
And just, but he, the more I've looked, I don't know if into him is the right word, but the more I've tried to read up on him and his record and his past, he is kind of like Officer Murphy. Like just in general, I have a problem with lionizing law enforcement in general. I think there's a problem with that because they're the last people that you would want anybody making excuses for with failures. Like we should be able to hold them to higher standards. We train them, we equip them, and if they still don't have what they need to be forthcoming about that. Like, what do you need to do your job and do it well without violating people's rights? Like, if there's something you need, let's talk about that. But that's not usually the conversation they have. The conversation they usually want to have is, I'm going to do what I want and you're going to accept it. And to me, that's, that's not it's not a good sign, but that kind of seems to be their default mindset. And I go back and forth with holding him up as an example, but I do think it is such a good example of Holman at every opportunity has just about thrown Ferency's investigation under the bus, even though he's supposedly this very well-respected officer. Like I can't make sense of it because most people have nothing bad to say about the man, but nobody has come to his defense, in my opinion, when it comes to his investigation. I don't quite think that he believed the way defense characterized it, but I do think from defense's perspective, they were, they had just gotten this thumb drive from Todd Click, and I think that is the way they understood it. They were looking at all of Ferenczy's research into, the satanic stuff, even though when Kevin Murphy said satanic, I think what he mean, is a very like in Texas, it's very Southern Baptist and stuff. If they say satanic, they don't mean like Satanist, like the Church of Satan.
It could be tarot cards. It could be anything.
Well, they just mean anything that's not Christian, to be honest. They just think is the devil. Right. And so, like I think that is kind of, I feel like the defense attorneys had a very normie take on it in the sense that they just didn't really understand it. And that was what they were reading. That was what they thought Ferency was saying. And I think there must have been some crazy notes that Ferency took just looking into that, because apparently he's very big on deep dives. And so maybe he did look into that just for the sake of considering it. But still,
interesting.
He did believe, whether it was Odinism or the Odinists, he believed that the Frank suspects were absolutely involved. And it's strange to me that nobody came to his defense, because it's normally the opposite, especially when they're fallen. But it is also a good example of how bad apples are. They put other officers in danger, whether it's their career and the trajectory and how successful they can be, or their actual lives, by just being dismissive of them or shushing them or ghosting them. I don't know. I think that is a part of this case that we don't talk about enough, is how many people Holman has endangered, and not just the swatting stuff. I mean, that is incredible to me, because that is like that's almost like an actual combatant against a civilian, in my opinion. I know that's probably extreme.
Sorry.
But when you're talking about power imbalances, that's just how I feel about it.
Yeah.
But it's also incredible. It's almost like he's fragging colleagues left and right. If they get in his way and they're, and it's his reputation or theirs, he throws them right under the bus. I think that's incredible even Robert Ives, I do think there's probably plenty of legitimate criticisms to be made of him, but how is Holman talk? He flat out said Robert Ives doesn't know what he's talking about, and he's saying that to the defense attorneys, and he probably was so open because he didn't think anybody would ever see it. Right. But we did, and it's just like anybody. He has no respect or concern for anybody, and he was the lead investigator. So, in my opinion, that is what set the tone for a lot of this. And there's very little about this that had anything to do with solving this crime or getting justice for these victims or their families. It was all about egos and just trying to close a case they didn't solve. I feel
And
like it is as simple as that in a lot of ways.
I'm going to say it. It's also protecting adjacent interested parties
Yeah.
who might belong to other clubs.
Hmm.
And that's a real thing, right? So we have different apples that grow on different kinds of apple trees, right? But then they all go to the apple club, right? Where they do weird things and they all socialize and network. And that's
Yeah.
really the problem here. And
That's a
so
very good analogy.
we're going to stick with these apples,
Yeah.
but it's true. And it goes from, and I'm going to say it in my view based on other institutions that I've seen, it all the way from the prison guards to maybe even possible suspects, and that's the string that nobody wants to follow. And I know that's a tough thing to say on the internet. Some people will say it, but it's true. And that's really the cord that needs to be cut, in my
Yeah.
opinion. But I don't
Well,
even know how to start doing that because you have to be on the inside to do that, right?
well, it's also hard to know where, it's almost like they have specialists come in to like defuse a bomb. If you
Mhm.
cut the wrong one too soon, everybody goes down and you don't really figure out what happened.
Mhm.
So you have to be somewhat strategic. You can make as much noise as you want and there's no harm in that. But when you start actually going to bat or making actual moves, like you got to be sure. And you don't want to cut yourself off too early either. But one of the reasons I haven't really gotten into the Flora stuff, and when I say haven't gotten
Mhm.
into it, I mostly mean like I finally started getting into the weeds on the actual facts of the case, but I don't really get into it on my Twitter, on my page. It's mostly because at this point in time, I don't know how anybody could ever change the tide to refocus it to really have any sort of movement in that case when all of the same players in that investigation
Are in
are the
power.
ones who are being decorated
Mhm.
and receiving awards left and right for Delphi.
Yeah.
And I'm like, until you force people to see that these men are not who they say they are, they did not accomplish what you're rewarding them for, you have to really strip them down to the truth and the actual facts of you got to hold them to their behavior. And until you do, nobody's going to think that it's weird that Flora's still not solved. They're just going to think, well, it's going to take somebody talking. Well, the fact that they still say that drives me crazy because that's what they did in Delphi. They, instead of investigating the evidence at the crime scene, they just waited for somebody to show up and explain it to them. And that is exactly what they're doing in Flora. And the thing is, if somebody does that in Flora, whoever the
Yeah.
first person to talk is, like they could blame it on anybody that they could reasonably place in the area, and that person will spend the rest of their life in prison, even if they had nothing to do with it,
Right.
because it happened in Del. And once you legitimize it in one case, they'll get away with it in the next case.
Which has likely happened, and
Hmm.
that's why it's so important for this case for Richard, for everything that's being done online. But again, I go back to this insider outsider thing that Gull really monopolized on, with the social media, and on unless there's a groundswell in that community based on what all the things that you're saying, in my opinion, I just don't see the change occurring with any of these, like Holman and all of these
Hmm.
people who are being decorated because of Delphi and the movement into Flora and then all of these other things that are going on that are being investigated. It's just you need a groundswell
Hmm.
in the community.
Yeah,
And
and I think that community is fatigued after
right.
this case, and I know a lot of people got real excited when they saw the FBI was knocking on doors in Flora and trying
Flora.
to raise awareness, but
Yeah.
I would have found that as hopeful as everybody else did if they weren't walking hand in hand with ISP. And I do think
Mhm.
that Richard Allen's trial, kind of, it wasn't much, but it was enough for them to need a show of force like they did. I feel like that was more of a PR stunt to kind of extend a little bit more credibility to ISP that had been lost
I agree.
from a lot of realizations that were that were brought to light during this trial. And people were asking, well, is that what happened in Florida? Are the same mistakes, the same investigators? And so they changed the narrative real quick by just going door to door. And I do think it just was more PR than, I know some people think, well, they got new information and they're just trying to whatever, but that's what they used to say in Delphi. Oh, we've got a New Direction press conference. And even around September of 2022, there were people on Twitter saying that an arrest is coming soon. Well, that was right around the time that Kathy Shank found the tip in her drawer.
She found it.
Allegedly.
She found in quotation marks.
Magically. Yeah. And then within a couple of weeks, Doug Carter is giving public statements saying there's no merit to that. It's baseless. He doesn't know why people are talking about that. Well, apparently he was out of the country at the time and maybe he just didn't know. But they do this all the time. And no matter what they do, even if the opposite happens, they have a funny way of just walking. I mean, they just walk it back and they do a 180 and nobody holds them to it. That's what's also incredible to me about all of this is that Unified Command and the prosecutor could come out any point in time and say, we got it wrong. We gotta go back and do this right. They could fess up fully and these families would still defend them. So it's, in some cases, I know some people are like, they're never going to admit it because they don't want to admit they were wrong. I don't know. Most people would not have that kind of support system in place where if they fucked up this royally, they would still have support and people still making excuses for them. And so the fact that they could come forward and admit that kind of mistake and actually keep pursuing whatever leads they have to solve this case, the fact that they don't, that when I first realized that was when I got to the point of, okay, this is probably a bigger problem than we realize that's going on here. This is not just, for a long time, I was just convinced they succumbed to tunnel vision and they just took each other's word for stuff. And they're like, you know what, if he says we've got this or, we cleared them, they're not real big on checking each other's work because it probably is seen as a form of disrespect. And so they just take each other's word for professional courtesy. But I really, for a long time...
You're too gracious. You're just too gracious. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you're too gracious. It's not checking. They're covering up for each other. Can I say the obvious part out loud?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead, Olize. You're making a very reasonable and graceful...
Well, no, I'm not... I don't still think that... I have obviously evolved way beyond that. But I just meant for a long time, just because I didn't think they cared enough to do more than that. In my from what I had at that point in time, everything I had seen was laziness and shit police work and just backwards, old school, just not thorough. And so it just, for a long time, I really just thought, okay, they found the first lead in a long time and they jumped the gun. But now I'm like, okay, no, now that I know, the only thing that makes any sense to me to this day is that they were, 5 weeks into that river search looking for whatever Keegan Klein supposedly threw into the river. They were 5 weeks in, and that was not a cheap venture. And I'm like, why was Richard Allen arrested after that? I know a lot of people think he snitched on him or whatever, but the more we learn about it, both the Kleins and Richard Allen were both like, no, I've never heard of that person when they were asked about the other one, and they were never able to find anything. I know some people went through and found out that Tony and Richard Allen went to the same high school, but not necessarily at the same time. And Richard Allen's mother lived in the same area as the Kleins did, but they never actually knew each other. But then when you realize just the timing of it, I do think now that we know he told police he had gone to the trails after going to visit his mom. I do think that in this, I think it's Sleuth Intuition who's still kind of on the, the hometown connection. I do see where people are coming from, where they're like, what are the odds that he leaves Peru and he wouldn't know the Kleins, and the Kleins are supposed to meet the girls that morning, and then Richard Allen shows up at the trail. If you're looking at it through that lens, it could be very compelling. But when you look at it when you look at all of the other context that was also going on at the time, and you realize that doesn't mean anything if they didn't know each other, and they clearly didn't, because
Precisely.
they've had so many years to find something connecting all of them, and they can't find anything that they've ever even had a conversation or ever even would have known who each other was. But that is the mindset around his arrest. And I know some people think that they did this because the election was coming up. And for me, I think that they just really jumped to a very, I mean, I can see the reasoning behind why they would suspect him and want to talk to him. But you would think they had dispelled all their suspicion after talking to him the first time, but they didn't. But I do think once Jerry Holman jumped the gun and actually arrested him, because the election was coming up, they couldn't be like, "Oh, okay, well, we can't really take it back now." Like, it was more along the lines of, we can't, once we realize there's no connection here, then Liggett's not gonna win. Like, I don't even know if they internalized it or what. I do think that played a role, but I do think it was more of a self-preservation, kind of
Yeah.
in the way people self-censor. I just think all of these things were just a shitstorm that happened at the same time, and nobody really had the courage to say, "Are we sure?" Because it wasn't about solving the crime, it was about closing the case. I think we can see, and no matter how we look at this, all of the things that happened after that all go back to supporting a theory that they only cared about closing this case and putting it behind him. And I think it's because they didn't think they'd ever solve it, and this is as close as they could get. And it drives me crazy because at some point they figured out there was absolutely no connection between him and the Kleins, but they had crossed so many lines by the time they figured it out that they were just not ever going to fess up to it.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like, honestly, part of me is just so pessimistic dealing with other types of institutions who have similar connections and networkings and things like this. Honestly, I feel like Richard, unfortunately, he was the perfect perp, and like he's vulnerable. He
Yeah.
he wasn't going to fight. He doesn't have a lot of money, and there was no other obvious suspects, right? So that's it. Like, everyone else was, if you're not in the club, you're out of it, right?
Yeah.
And that's it. If you're not you're hitting outside the club, then they're going to hit you. And that's period, end of story, because everyone else involved here were connected in some other way.
Yeah.
Right. And he's the only outlier, and he's the most vulnerable person, and he was the only other person who put himself there. Right. So, and yes, they wanted to close out the case, so they took him. It's just pretty simple. And it's unfortunate because this is what happens all over the country, right? It's just we're just
Yeah.
involved with this.
One of the worst things, in my opinion, about confessions, especially if it's a circumstantial case, if that is your strongest evidence, I think there's got to be some sort of change where law enforcement really does some sort of blinders check, or like actual, okay, we need to bring someone else in and look at this because maybe we're too close to it, or like, just let's make extra sure. Because when they have circumstantial evidence and then a confession, in some ways I understand the reasoning behind some people saying, why would anybody confess to this? Because I don't think I would confess to something this horrific. But then I go back to, I have no clue what I would do. And the closest thing I can ever relate it to is when most of us get hangry, like, we are very unpleasant, like, and if you have to wait too long, like when I was a kid, especially on Sundays, like if church went too long, and then then we got to figure out where everybody's going to eat after church. And then you have to get there, and then everybody else who got out of church earlier, they're already there. And so you have to wait for them to get done eating. And by the time you eat, everybody's just kind of like, I don't even care what I get anymore. Like, just,
I'll
like,
say anything for a pancake.
Yeah. And, and that is just such a mild inconvenience that affects our behavior in ways
Correct.
where, like, we're not very polite to people even. And that's just because we're having to wait a little bit longer to eat. And so then when I try to, make it even worse, I'm like, what if I had to stay in a closet because that's the size of a cell, and I couldn't come out until somebody came by and checked on me? Or they did come and check on me, and because I wasn't polite enough to them or quick enough moving my hands, I got tased. Like there's just all these things where like
Yeah.
it fractures and strips you of a sense of reality, and you just have no sense of security, or you don't have a shared reality with anybody anymore. And there's just all these other things that go into it. And I just can't for the life of me understand how that is enough, especially for an officer. They're so reliant on these. And you would think they, of all people, know more than others how unreliable that should be. Like if I had just really exhausted somebody, like if I'm trying to debate them or something and I just like wear them down or whatever, I
Mhm.
don't find any honor in that, because
Mhm.
some people, they just, if they're just giving up, I'm like, that's not really,
It's not a win.
yeah, it's
Right.
really just like they have enough self-respect to walk away. And that's kind of why a lot of times like they're like Dr. Zane and then Checkmate on Twitter, like there's some people who just like they will keep going because they are just trying to wear people down. And I have no problem muting them, because I'm like, okay, this person is not, one, they're not operating in good faith, but like they're just trying to wear people down. And that is not what I'm doing. That is not what most of us are doing. Like if people have actual questions and they're asking in good faith, we will talk to them all day. But
Right.
if they're just fucking
Trolling.
around, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like, you have a good day, loser. Like I get so mad at those people because I'm like, what are they? And especially the people who think he's guilty. I don't understand why they are not living their best life right now and just thoroughly enjoying all of the peace of mind that this man's confessions bring to them. Like, let's bring this back up. Like, why
Right.
are they not just thoroughly enjoying
Do you,
this man's like this is the guy who solved the crime in their
do,
minds. They're like, the police couldn't figure it out, but this guy did. He explained it to them, apparently. I don't understand it.
do you I really don't think that any true like guilters are on Twitter, X, whatever we call it these days, like trolling. They're not. They're like state paid actors or whoever they are. Like honestly, in my opinion,
My theory is that they are all Gray Hughes alt accounts. Like, I really think that Dr. Zane is Gray Hughes because he was on Nancy Grace. She was quoting Dr. Zane's tweets
stop.
in
Was she
her
really?
like,
I had
yes,
no idea.
she had Gray Hughes on, and I think Susan Hendricks. And then while
Of
she's,
course.
going back and forth between Gray Hughes and Susan Hendricks, she's like, I want to read some stuff. I don't know if she was just like trying to like, I really don't know why. I'm like, why would Nancy Grace even know about this account? Because there's like no followers on it. And I'm like, this is Gray Hughes. And I know some people say it can't be him because Dr. Zane's kind of dumb. And, he pretends not to understand stuff, or he's not that quick. I'm like, I think it's because it's an alt account and it's Gray Hughes trying to, like it's his best attempt at trying to be somebody else, but he's still like he makes all the same points that Gray Hughes likes to make. And he even got quoted by Nancy Grace. So I'm like, there's something going on here.
That's hilarious.
I
I had
know.
no idea about that. I can't wait until Nancy Grace finds one of DB's memes or something and puts it on the air. That'll be great too.
She probably won't. I think she has all of us blocked, which is so funny to me. I'm like, that is so pathetic. Like, she went and showed up for what? I think people said she was in the courtroom for maybe 20 minutes. Actually, no, it's probably longer than that.
She, yeah,
She went for the morning, and at the first break, she went and set up and went live.
she was only in there, from what I recall, for Monica Walla's
Yep.
questioning by the state. She left before the defense even got to her. And then she went outside with that stupid hat in the wind, and she's like, "Oh, live!"
I think
Whatever.
woman Photoshop. I think it was a
Oh,
woman.
oh
But
my
we
gosh!
definitely have a meme in our archive for Kreppen of
Yeah.
Nancy Grace. Somebody put that, she's wearing the hat or whatever, and they put
Yes.
her on the bridge. She went live from
That's
Monon High
really
Bridge.
good. That's so
Like
funny.
bridge guys right behind her. And then there's another one. Oh man, I think it's Torsel. He's commenting on somebody's photo of her going live. It's like we've got some pretty good ones from just that one live that she did. But yeah, she quoted Dr. Zane on her,
That's
on her
crazy.
national news.
That's insane.
Yeah, I'm like, that's outrageous to me.
I have to go find that one because that's hilarious. That's classic. But I don't know. I just want to thank you, All Eyes. I think we're having like a great time. I'm sorry that we can't be on the stage. I don't know.
I
One day
forgot
I'm
about
going to
that.
learn the internet. One day I'll learn how to use it. And but yeah, it was a great chat. I'm so happy that you came on, and thank you. You're actually like my first guest ever on the channel, and I'm so happy
Well, I feel
that
honored for that. I'm glad you
yeah,
asked because I have not really gotten a chance to like vent either. When I saw your new thumbnail, I'm like, that's perfect because I've been just trying to organize stuff and it is hard to not, like sometimes you have to talk about it to really fully process it. And I think it's good. I think sometimes we
it's
all need that with this
therapy.
case. Yeah.
We all
And to
need
just
it.
like talk it through. But I do think because it's been a while since we've revisited the actual prison stuff. And this photo is horrible.
I truly believe that somewhere a lawyer can make this of legitimate proof that this is proof
Yeah.
that he was beaten, that he was tortured around the time of the confessions. This is, in my opinion,
Yeah.
as long as we could get an exact date on the video of when this video was taken in Westville, this proves that he was coerced. Those confessions were coerced. I mean, I don't know how that's not proof, in my opinion. And I don't know.
I'm going to
I
pull this
just,
up. Before we go, I am going to pull this up one last time just so we can remember. Because, yeah, we do at least now have, we don't have an exact date, but
right.
according to Max Baker's affidavit, he's the one who took this still shot from the video, and it was a camcorder video. And it was he said it was taken between May 26th and May 30th. And that is also, it is also further down in his affidavit where he talks about when they went with Kathy to visit him, she basically just cried most of the time. And now that makes a lot more sense. I mean, she probably would have cried either way, even if he wasn't beaten to a pulp. But like, it also just infuriates me too, because at that visit, they wouldn't even let her get like a Pepsi or whatever, or get a drink of water. I mean, he's sitting there looking like that. Like, let the man have a Pepsi. Like, he hasn't even had his day in court. Like, even if you think he's guilty, it doesn't matter because he hasn't actually been convicted yet. They're supposed to be keeping him there for his safety. Nothing about his condition is indicative of people who are safe keeping him. It's incredible to me.
Yeah. To me, it's a clear link. It's
Yeah.
honestly, it really is. And there's somebody who must know how to make that happen.
I need to know how long it takes for those bruises to go away. Like, how long would he, like, when would he have incurred those bruises for it to look like that at the end of May?
Well, the blood is fresh on the top on like where his widow peak would be, like you said. That's fresh. And then those eyes are black. Black. I mean, I'm only a mom, but I would have to, I don't think they're very old.
It's hard to tell because it is such a grainy video.
Yeah.
But that's also, I'm like, how old was that camcorder?
Weeks for what, woman? Like, it could be black like that for weeks, or?
Okay, well, if we're talking 3 weeks, that would have been the week of his confession to Walla.
I think it's, there's got to be other proof that we're never going to get, but someone can work with this, because in my opinion, this could blow it open. 3 days, she's saying. I don't know. As soon as I saw the picture, though,
I would hope defense was able to figure out what day was he taken to medical to treat or were they just not even taking him because they were pretending like he was just lightly banging his head against the wall. That is what I forget which guard it was, but if anybody goes, you can go to the GitHub and just in the menu, no matter what page you're on, if you go to the menu, there's a direct link to the Google Drive. And if you just type in October 29th, I forget what day it is of the trial, but it's like, it'll say day whatever, October 29th. It's nothing but the guard's testimony, and you can just keyword search that, but type in the word head, and it'll bring up all the different guards who testified about him banging his own head. but they were all acting like he was lightly doing it. I can't get over that. Once I saw this photo, I kept going back to the testimony of the guards, and it's they were all lying.
Mm-hmm. And the companions
Yeah.
too. So we don't know. And it could have been the companions, it could have been the guards themselves doing all of this too. So,
Yeah.
you know, but I definitely think there's somebody can make this case. And
I
then,
hope so.
but I don't know. That's partially the reason why I wanted to make the video, because it's like there's so much information,
Yeah.
and there, people the lawyers, like the attorneys, are overwhelmed with everything, right? So
Yeah,
how
and
do
they
you
have
make
other trials
sure?
going on, and then they've got
Yeah,
other cases. I don't know how they I don't know how they really balance all these, because there's also apparently a shortage for appellate attorneys in Indiana, so I don't know how the new
everywhere.
attorneys. Yeah, like, they're probably all very short on time, but that is one of the reasons I do try to focus on one case at a time, because
Mhm.
I think every case like this probably needs a weirdo who doesn't get burnt out or get sidetracked with other stuff. Not that there's anything wrong. Like, it's probably more healthy for people to do that,
Mhm.
but in a sense of like just committed to staying on top of it and like watchdogging it kind of thing.
That's why I think you're a Virgo, but I can't believe you're not a Virgo, because I've never seen a non-Virgo uh, organize and stay on top of anything the way that you have here. So, and
Well, I'm usually in other areas of life. I'm not, but like my my neurotic tendencies
Yeah.
were born out of necessity. I'll just put
There
it
you
that
go.
way.
Understood that. I can resonate with that 100%. I totally can.
Yeah.
And who's a Capricorn? Oh, yes, Capricorn can do that too. You're right. You're right. But sorry, I did not like announce I mean, everybody here it's us, right? It's all
Oh
our
yeah,
people, but
it does.
I'll be sure to link the website in the description box for anybody from other communities who might be checking out the video at some time. I think it's pretty compelling, and I think it's really important for us to get this conversation out into other types of niches and communities.
Absolutely.
I think we need a lot more people understanding what's happening with Richard, and the
Mhm.
more people, and we just need to keep
And for people to
talking.
understand that, like, this is happening as a result of the same investigators who are doing this in other cases as well. Like, this is not a one-off. There's others. We really only know of Flora. We know there are other mishandled cases, but 6 little girls in the same county were killed within months of each
Mhm.
other. Like, that one always haunts me too. That statistic right there is in such a small county. Like, I think the whole county total is 20,000 people, but between Flora and Delphi, there's maybe 5,000 people. Like, this was 9 miles away from each other. That's not normal. It's not a coincidence. It's just there's something going on here, and these little
Mhm.
girls out there are on their own, and I don't like that. So
I
yeah, I think it's good to get it out about this case, and at least so people understand it's not really just a true crime thing or like a team thing where we're like pro defense against the state. Like, this is a legitimate wrongful conviction. There are very serious systemic issues, and it is good for people to just learn about it.
It's about justice. It's
Yeah,
about morality. It's about ethics. And so that transcends true crime and like trial watching. And I think, yeah, I mean, I think anyone who just cares about the right thing is
yeah,
going to care about this case. And the different voices that we have speaking about it in different ways, I think is really important. So
agreed. Absolutely agreed. And I appreciate you inviting me this time. This was great.
No, I'm so happy that you agreed because I was
Yeah,
a little
I was
nervous
excited.
and you forced me. Thanks for walking me through my first
Well, I'm sorry I couldn't help you figure out how to get us on stage,
Yeah.
but the only trick I know is to leave and come back in.
We'll figure it out for next time. But
Yeah,
thanks so much for
absolutely.
coming, All Eyes, and everybody. Thanks for joining. I'm so happy to have you guys here. And we will do. I want to do like a spiritual Delphi
Yeah.
chat one day. We'll talk about our signs and we'll do all kinds of
We
crazy
have
stuff
to
like
make sure
that.
Delphi Docs is awake for that one.
Oh yeah. So well, maybe you guys could help me harass her. I've been trying to get her to do even just this, where she doesn't even have to be on camera, but she doesn't want to do it. So let's harass her together and maybe we can
Harass
convince
her out of
her.
love.
Yes, out of love, a lovingly push her. But All Eyes, thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for joining, and I hope you all have a great night.
Hi, goodbye.
Bye.